Let's just start.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Addie.
And I'm Reagan.
And this is...
Just weird crap.
And that's where I'll put music in.
Okay.
Okay.
So, okay. Which one of us should go first?
I think that you should.
You want me to go first? Ooh. I'm up. Okay. So...
should we, explain what our podcast is going to be about, though?
Yeah, probably that would be good.
All right. So, we made this podcast because we basically love to learn and we love talking to each other. And we thought, other people should be able to get in on this too. And we wanted to cover topics that were... I haven't really seen any podcasts that are specifically on topics like what we're wanting to cover. And hopefully... those topics become a little bit more clear the more that we record. Yeah. Not quite conspiracy theories, not quite true crime, just weird crap.
That unexplained, funky stuff that goes on in our
Funky
world.
monkey stuff, exactly. So that's hopefully what we're going to be bringing to the table. And our plan is to kind of format it where we can both learn a little bit. So each week, I don't know. We'll see. We might do one person each week, two people, both of us. I don't know. This week,
shake it up a little bit.
Yeah, this week we're each going to bring something to the table. So you get to hear both of us yabber on. And you'll get to learn and grow with us because we don't know what we're doing, but it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So
Gotta start somewhere.
Exactly. So Reagan's going to go first, and I'm very excited.
Why do I have to go first?
Because.
Okay. So, the rabbit hole that I fell down researching was the Loch Ness Monster. And it's going to be difficult to fit all of the information that I want to into this little
Talk really fast.
segment. Because I really had no idea that there was so much that I didn't know about. I fancied I knew a good amount about this topic, and I really didn't. So, I guess I will start off at the very beginning, and start with the early history and the origins of the legend that we now know as the Loch Ness Monster. Okay.
Go.
So, the first written account of a water monster in or near Loch Ness is about 1,500 years old. It appears in a 6th century biography of the missionary... Okay, it appears in a 6th century biography of the missionary Saint Columba, who, there's a tale of him rebuking this monster, this creature that was attacking local residents, the Pict tribe. And for one thing, I'm just going to say my opinion about this is the story in and of itself is a little bit just far-fetched to me. And, it was not recorded until about a century after it was supposedly happened.
That's not suspicious.
And when it was recorded, it was, like I said, the 6th century. So, there's a lot of traditions from this era, religious traditions and miracles that probably may not be real. In addition to that, it isn't actually a clear description of the creature that is rebuked in this story, so...
Very fuzzy.
It's very fuzzy. It's just a water monster that was attacking people, so that's not
Could have been a large fish.
Yeah, you really don't know. It's just it could be so many things. It's not a clear description. It's not hey, there's this thing and it had flippers and a long neck.
Yeah.
So it's not probably the best piece of evidence for Nessie believers, but it's good to have that in there because it's, it shows that it's been going on for a very long time. And before that, even, there have been carvings and stuff around Loch Ness for, like, from the local tribes for thousands of years. These things are very old. And they are they do sort of resemble what we think of when we think of the Loch Ness Monster. So that is interesting. So that's the first recorded possible Nessie sighting. And there's really not much else that's recorded for the next 1,000 years, and some it's very silent for a long time.
Nessie was pretty quiet.
Yeah, Nessie was keeping its head down. The next, like, legit thing is during the late 1800s, there was a couple reports of somebody seeing this weird thing in the lake that kind of was wiggling around and it looked like a log or an upside down boat. And then there's another report of a large animal with stubby legs that kind of there's another account of something resembling a large animal with stubby legs that dragged itself onto the shore.
What?
Which sounds adorable.
Did they say how big they were?
No, and that's the thing. It's like these guys reported this, and they're just like, it was large. That's the thing. They were always like, it was a large animal.
Like a dog is large, or large like a boat?
I mean, it's got to be bigger than an actual salamander, so that's interesting no matter what, because salamanders are like 3 inches long. But so there's that. But when the Loch Ness Monster really started gaining public attention was in the 30s. Mm-hmm. There was just, it's like, there's 1 or 2 reports, and then the 30s happen, and it's just boom. There are so many sightings, quote sightings, and reports, and I'm not going to be able to cover them all because there are so many, but probably the first one that really started getting the attention of the public was an article that appeared in the Inverness Courier describing a alleged sighting reported by Aldi McKay and her husband in 1933. And what she said she saw was a large animal, and it was rolling around and kind of frolicking in the water for about a minute before it disappeared into the foam and left a huge wave in its wake. And that got a lot of attention, media attention, and people really started, visiting more, and there was an uptick in supposed sightings after this. So it kind of opened people's eyes, but she did admit, this lady admitted that she did know about the oral history of something living in the loch, so that you can color what you see.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing it got more popular in the 30s too, because like it was easier to travel then, and like there was more newspapers and stuff. I'm guessing then
a road was built
1,500 years before.
There was a road built around the loch.
Oh, well, there you go.
That was when it all
started.
That'll do it. Yeah. A lot of the stories are like, it crossed the road.
Oh.
Why did Nessie cross the road? And probably the next best-known sighting of the 30s was George Spicer and his wife, and they were motoring along this road, and they stopped, and because there was this extraordinary animal, as they put it, crossing the road in front of their car, and theirs is the most detailed description, honestly. They've got, like, approximate measurements and stuff, and the body was, according to them, about 4 feet wide and 25 feet long. And it had a long, narrow neck, and the neck was about as long as the road was wide. So this thing was big, according to them, and it was carrying an animal.
It's only 4 feet wide, but the neck is as wide as the road?
No, the neck is as long as the road is wide.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. I was like, my gosh, it's a thick neck. Okay, sorry, I get it.
And it was carrying an animal in its mouth, and it crossed the road and crashed through the undergrowth toward the loch, and I believe they got out and tried to follow it, and it was gone.
I would have motored right away. right, I'm out.
Yeah, like,
Motoring on out of here.
Yeah. But yeah, that's about when the sightings started pouring in.
Yeah.
And the creature was supposedly caught on camera for the first time by a Mr. Hugh Gray. And there's a lot of skepticism about this photo.
Oh, is this like the famous photo?
No, that is a different photo, which I will get to in a second.
Oh, okay. I should stop talking.
I didn't really know about this one. Honestly, I think I'd seen it in a book or something.
Yeah.
But it's very, very blurry, and most people suspect that it was actually a picture of his dog, which he admits he brought to the lake with him. And, okay, I looked at this photo. I'm going to be 100% honest. I looked at this photo, and I could not see the dog.
Can I look it up?
Yeah, okay, it's the
see.
Hugh Gray photograph. And the original
I just wrote
photo has
huge
been
gray.
The original photo has been lost, but there's stuff all over the internet, so...
Gray.
I couldn't see the dog until I saw like a really detailed
Oh.
diagram of it, and then I saw the dog, and now I can't unsee it.
That does not look like a dog to me at all.
Okay, so what it's supposed to be is from the front,
Is this the one?
a swimming dog carrying a stick in its mouth, and it's coming toward the camera, which I didn't see until I saw a picture of like a dog doing the same thing. And then now, like I said, I can't unsee it now, so it's kind of hard because it's like, am I just seeing what I'm told to see?
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
I don't see a dog at all.
Let
I
me
don't
see
really
if I
see
can look up
anything though.
Yeah. Like I said, it's really hard to see it until you see it, and then you can't unsee it. Retriever.
Also, photographs were like so different back then. Than
But
they are
if you look,
oh, I see it.
do you see it now?
Oh,
like,
I totally see it.
You
oh,
can
like
see like
this
an
one.
ear. Yeah, can you see the ear and the
Yeah.
nose and the eye?
I can see that now.
Now there are some people that say like
but that's
the shadows.
only in like one of them when it looks like.
Yeah, I think a lot of them have been retouched, and I think the original photos have been lost. So it's like, am I even seeing?
Yeah, that's rough.
But
Huh.
yeah,
Either way, it's interesting because
very
I see
interesting.
both.
I can see both, and
Yeah.
it's a better piece of evidence than the surgeon's photograph. So
Wow. Oh yeah, I totally see that now though.
yeah, it really.
But only in certain ones.
Yeah,
Not in all of them.
And I read up about it, and there's like Nessie proponents are like, it's absolutely not a dog, and here's why. And I can't say that their reasons really seemed that good to me.
It's one of those things where it's like it could be.
We'll
both.
never know,
Yeah.
you know. But it's definitely interesting because you can kind of see both.
Yeah.
So there's that, and I'm gonna have to skim over a few other reports because there were.
No, go. Tell
There's
me.
so many more though, even in just the 30s. It's like, okay,
Do one more.
there was this veterinary student named Arthur Grant who was riding his motorcycle the same year, and he claims to have almost hit an animal. It was nighttime, and his description pretty much matches the Spicer's description and other people's descriptions. And skeptics are dismissing it as an otter, or he couldn't judge the size
It's a
because
big
it was dark.
otter.
I know.
I've never once seen an otter and been like, oh, it's 4 feet wide.
Exactly. That's the thing, is they're always like, it was an otter.
If it was an otter, honestly,
If
that's
it was
like
an otter, we're in trouble.
that's just as scary as a Loch Ness monster. Almost more so. Like,
yes.
of like mutant
Yeah.
otter running around.
And skeptics are like, okay, it was dark and you couldn't judge the size. So I don't really know. And I mean, he was a veterinary student, so I'm guessing he was not like ignorant of the existence of otters, you know, in the world. He probably would have recognized
and
an
also,
otter when he
like,
saw one.
When it's dark, like I'm assuming his motorcycle had a headlight. Because
Yeah.
obviously if he was...
It's
there
kind of
had
hard to
have been
drive when you
sunlight.
can't see where you're going.
Exactly, so there was some source of light. And even in darkness, like...
You can
I
tell
said
the
that weird.
difference.
In darkness, not
You can tell
darkness.
Otters are not big.
Yeah.
Otters are like small.
Like I'm not saying he definitely saw a Loch Ness monster, but
yeah.
I would... It's like if I had a flashlight and I was out in the dark and I was like, oh yeah, I saw a horse. And people were like, no, it was dark. It was just a mouse. I'd be like, well, no, like it was big. It was a huge
maybe
animal.
It wasn't an elephant.
Yeah, like it wasn't, maybe it wasn't a horse. Maybe it was a deer or something, but like I didn't see, like that's a big difference.
It's like he says he sees this and they're kind of going to the most odd explanation they could
otter,
to me.
yeah.
An otter.
Well,
I mean, Loch Ness does have, I'll say this, they do have a large population of otters. So they're
giant otters?
I don't know.
What kind of otters y'all have out there, Loch Ness?
Otters, I admit, could be responsible for a lot of the water sightings because they do leave a wake, and if there's just a head poking up, it's hard to tell what you're looking at. But crossing
on
the
land,
road on land, that just seems a little far-fetched to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I will address the surgeon's photograph, which is the most famous photo.
One,
the famous one of the head coming up out of the water, and I thought this had been proven a hoax.
I thought so too.
But from what I could research, it's mostly just agreed upon by experts to be a hoax. But I don't think they're, like, the person who took it actually ever admitted it was a hoax, and I could be wrong, but from what I could dig up, it was never 100% proven. Like, he never confessed.
Interesting. I heard that it was, like, 100% proven to be, like, basically old-fashioned Photoshop, like...
I heard what the story I heard was it was 100% a toy submarine with, like, a head glued onto it.
Yeah.
So I was a little surprised to learn that because I was under the impression that had been proven, no question about it, like, signed confession, he did a hoax. It was a hoax. But it's mostly just believed to be a hoax. So I was like, oh, okay, that's an interesting point.
That's different than...
Yeah, in 1934, Dr. Robert Kenneth Wilson snapped several photos of a mysterious creature swimming in the loch. Only 1 or 2 photos turned out, and only one of the photos became famous, and that's the one that we all think of when we think of, the Loch Ness Monster. Analysis of the uncropped photo shows that it's probably a little bit smaller than it could be if it was... than it would be if it was the Loch Ness Monster. That sentence was a mess.
I just typed in Loch Ness photo, and I was like, this isn't of a monster. This is just of a loch.
Type up the surgeon's photograph. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Well, no, these are all like...
Oh. Yeah, type in the surgeon's photograph. That's what it's known as.
Surgeon's photo. Okay. 18th time. Okay, I got it.
See, the thing about this that honestly to me makes me think it's more of a hoax is the size of the ripples.
Okay, I was just gonna say
when the photo was published, it was cropped, and the ripples turned into big waves that made you think it was a lot.
It looks
bigger.
like it's like this big.
Yeah. So that's honestly to me what discredits that photo is when you see the uncropped version, it looks dinky.
It does.
It's like maybe it was a baby.
It was a baby Loch Ness.
And some people also think it could have been a swan.
Oh.
Which,
my gosh, it totally could have been a swan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Although I will say it doesn't actually look like a swan.
I mean, swans don't swim with just their necks sticking out of the water.
That is a weird looking swan.
They float with their entire bodies. But the size to me just doesn't look right.
The size does not look right, no.
So most people think it was a hoax, like to get back at his colleagues for something or something. And it was a wood putty head attached to a toy submarine. So it's kind of quiet for a couple decades, and then in 1954 it's when it starts to get a little interesting with the dawn of newer technology and sonar. The crew of a fishing boat took sonar readings, and what they found in those readings was a large object 469 feet below the surface, kept pace with them for about 2,600 feet.
Oh, well, that's
Something
terrifying.
was moving underneath them, keeping pace with them for a good amount of time before they lost it.
Wow.
And there's really no explanation for that one that I could find. It was
So they haven't found like any really big fish or something that like live there that could account for that?
No, there are no large fish species living in the loch, according to a DNA survey done pretty recently.
Was it a large otter, perhaps?
Otters can't swim that deep, I don't think.
Oh, that's true.
It was very, very deep.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that. Like basically all I know is that there was like that one photo and I thought it was disproven, and then that's like pretty much all I knew.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing to research. And then in 1960, aeronautical engineer Tim Dinsdale filmed an object leaving a wake as it moved across the lake, and skeptics claim the object was a boat, and even that you can see a man on the boat when the contrast is increased. But I watched this video. It's right on the internet.
It's right on the internet. It's just right there.
I mean, it's not a difficult thing to find.
Yeah.
It's kind of everywhere, and pictures of it are also there. And I'd seen pictures of it before, but I never watched the video. And I can't say that it's great quality. It's the 60s, and it's incredibly fuzzy, and you can't see detail, but you can see something, kind of a black bump, and it's moving, and it is leaving a wake, but the way it's moving is, it's like slowly gliding, and it turns and does these turns that don't make sense to me. Like, a boat wouldn't just turn for no reason and then go back the other way. It didn't move like a boat moves. You know, boats kind of just go where they're going. Okay.
I mean, don't we all?
But I mean, like, it wouldn't make sense to me the way it moved.
Yeah,
it wasn't going from point A to point B. It was kind of smoothly gliding
Now, could it
through
have
the
been
water.
like, you know, those like tiny little boats that like you can kind of turn on a dime? Like,
It could have been a speedboat.
Boating expert, but
You know,
like,
it absolutely could have been a speedboat, but there is an element of doubt there that
makes you
when you
pause.
watch it, it's just like you can't say one direction or one way or the other.
What is that one?
That is the Dinsdale film of 1960. What is interesting too is in 1993.
Oh my gosh, this is absolutely terrible.
The video is better than the photos.
Okay, I was like, that's absolutely terrible.
In 1993, a digital enhancement was made of the film, and some people that worked on it say that they thought it was all a hoax before and it was ridiculous until they saw that video, and that there is a shape under the water that is moving that you can see. It's very short.
Wow.
Well, actually, no, it's
Should have. That was like.
it should be like 15 seconds long or something.
Oh, I lost it, but that's okay. Oh, here it is.
And what you can see something dark that appears to be kind of below the surface. I don't know if that's a reflection.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to tell because it's
just
such...
so hard to tell. It's one of those things.
Wow. Okay, interesting though.
It just looks a little bit odd to me, but it could be like a speedboat.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know a ton about boats, but it's just one of those things that could go either way.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing about the Loch Ness Monster. What makes it interesting is it's never been proven one way or the other.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little more recently, another video was taken in 2007, which you might want to look that up too, because it's really clear.
iPhone era.
It is very good quality. It is, oh wait, no, that was not the one I could find. Scratch that. Forget about that.
Kidding.
We'll take that out.
That was a lie.
Another video was taken, and I couldn't find it.
Oh.
I am thinking of a different video, so I can't really comment on that video because I wasn't able to find it.
Oh, what is it?
I don't have that written down.
Like, I can't find it.
It was supposed to be published on like BBC Scotland, but I couldn't find that either. It's kind of just gone, apparently.
Maybe because
conspiracy.
it showed that there was indeed a
Yeah,
Loch
I
Ness
found it on the
monster.
BBC Scotland website, but then it wouldn't play. Like it was
That's all the proof we need, folks, right there. Nessie's real. Trying to pull the wool over our eyes.
We cannot be fooled. Now the video I was thinking of earlier was the David Elder video of 2013, and I encourage you to look this up right now if you can.
Okay.
It was easy to find. Like the David Elder has a YouTube channel with this on it.
Okay, I'll just go on YouTube then.
And I watched this one, and it's a little over a minute, and it shows an odd wave. Okay, let's start over.
One? Oh, this is an hour long.
Okay, that's on a loop. It must be.
Okay.
Because there's one, it's about a minute long on his actual channel.
Oh.
And it shows a an odd wave in the loch, and I mean, I grew up near the ocean, and I have seen a lot of waves. I haven't seen a lot of waves on lakes, but it doesn't actually look like the other waves in the photo. It's a relatively still day, and there are some shimmery, shiny, sparkly waves closer to the camera that don't resemble this
that
black
looks
line
really different.
Farther out. It does not match the other waves that we're seeing on that same lake on the same day and the same time.
And it's like moving.
It moves in a way that
is wild. That actually is really
is
interesting. Because it looks like something.
It looks
it's
like
just like
some
kind of
undulating
circling
or something. Now, I will say Loch Ness does have it is the way the lake is built, and I don't know much about this.
Look at like the way he like.
Yeah, I watched.
That's bizarre.
It's a little bit odd, isn't it?
It is. And that's actually nice because you can actually see it.
Yeah, it's a really good quality video.
Yeah.
And there is some sort of, I didn't look at this, to be honest. I didn't research this very closely because it was very complicated.
Yeah.
But the loch does have sometimes odd waves will happen because of the way that it moves or something, and it can cause standing waves. But that didn't look like a standing wave to me. It looked like a weird thing.
Yeah.
Moving.
I don't know about
otter.
standing waves. Maybe it was a giant otter.
It was a giant otter. So there's that one, and that's honestly probably the best quality picture or video you can find.
I really want to track down that one on BBC Scotland.
I know, and I didn't try for a really long time because there's a lot of videos that have been taken and a lot of photos, but I tried several different keywords and I couldn't find anything that would play it.
Well, because all the other ones, when you look it up, it like instantly comes up and it's right there.
Yeah.
So you would think that by typing in...
I was getting these weird hits that I was like, this isn't even close to what I typed.
Yeah.
And pretty much the most recent supposed Nessie sighting happened in 2014, and I'm gonna say right off the bat that I am not exactly a Nessie skeptic. I think there's good evidence both ways, but I don't think this was anything. It was okay. So what it was an Apple Maps photo.
Oh,
and you can look that up too if you want to. It looks like whoa at first until you see it compared to the wake of a particular type of boat, and it's identical.
Ah, okay.
Honestly, at first glance, I thought it looked more like some sort of weird whale
shark
under the surface.
Oh.
But then look up photos of boat wakes. There should be some on the same page, and it looks exactly the same. Like the way that it goes out to the side and slightly in front of the boat.
Okay, yeah.
It looks just like that. Now, the problem is that there's really no boat that's visible.
That was my thing, is I was like, that does look like on this picture how it shows the boat.
Yeah.
But that still looks totally different.
Now, the thing is, it could be lost to really low contrast.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Or image stitching, which is, sometimes they have different photos that they have to put together, so somehow the boat didn't make it. And I'm not sure how zoomed in those photos are or anything. It may not be good quality.
Yeah, because here's the...
Yeah, it looks... It's very.
It's also a very weird shape. Like you said, it looks like
a weird whale shark. It doesn't look like the more plesiosaur.
You know what I bet it is?
What? It's a giant otter.
An otter. Yeah.
It's one of those mutant otters.
It's one of those mutant otters. Oh my gosh, it's an erder. Boy.
So yeah, that's that. And
that is weird, though. I will say, it does look like it could be the wake of the boat or whatever, but it looks also extremely different from the wake of the boat. So.
Yeah, the shape is there, but it's
to me though it looks a lot rounder.
And it could be. I saw a lot of pictures of the wakes of boats, and it could just depend on the shape of the boat. Maybe it was a wider boat or something.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But I saw this one thing where somebody actually found a particular boat that it was identical, and they're like, okay, so this Loch Ness monster photo kind of looks a lot like this
I think the biggest thing for me is that it doesn't look like any of the eyewitness accounts?
No.
Like, that looks like you said, like a giant shark.
The
or
eyewitness
something.
accounts, to its, the credit of believers, the eyewitness accounts, like, all line up.
They
from
do,
what I
yeah.
could tell. They're pretty much all describing
Because that doesn't look
similar.
like something that could be out of the water. It looks like a giant.
Yeah.
Which, who knows, maybe there's something else living in there that never comes out.
Yeah, the biggest difference in the eyewitness accounts is some people saw legs, some people saw flippers, some people saw nothing.
But that also makes sense with eyewitness
Yeah.
accounts, because everyone kind of describes things a little
bit differently.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at the Gospels in the Bible, and it's the same story, but there's slight differences.
Slightly different, but the main components are there.
I mean, everyone agrees on the shape of the body and the head and the neck.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much the most recent Nessie news.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna move now to some possible explanations for what people are seeing. And some of them...
Giant otters.
Some of them make more sense to me than others. Some of them seem more far-fetched than the actual accounts of the Loch Ness Monster. And some of them do seem like they could be also valid.
Yeah.
So, there have been several expeditions that have set out to discover what could possibly be in the lake causing these sightings, and they've kind of come up empty, except for, like, a couple. For going out and looking for this thing, not much has been found. There have been there's nothing conclusive, but there have been just enough odd sonar readings and blurry underwater pictures to just keep that little seed of doubt in there. Probably the best example of this is a series of studies that happened in the 1970s, and there are several pictures that they came back with of what appears to be a rhomboid, which is apparently a type of flipper, a rhomboid flipper, and photos that could possibly depict the body of a plesiosaur-like creature. It's hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blurry photo. I mean, it's underwater and dark, and it could be a log or it could be a plesiosaur. It's like whatever you want to see.
Yeah.
But the flipper one I had seen before I decided to research this, and it's not a fish fin. It does not look like a fish fin, and that's the best explanation anyone can come up with.
Yeah.
It almost looks more like a turtle flipper to me.
Ooh. Well, that makes
I think it was really deep, and I don't know how deep turtles go. Like, I've never really thought about how deep turtles swim in Loch Ness, but it's definitely much more reptilian looking, and it would have to be a sea turtle.
Yeah.
I mean, freshwater turtles don't have flippers, so it's just a little odd to me, and it just doesn't look like a fish fin to me unless it's very odd lighting that make it appear to not be translucent like a fish fin is.
What do the experts say?
The experts say it's a fish fin.
Oh, okay, well.
So, I don't know. It's just another one of those things. You don't know. And something else that is worth mentioning is that a DNA survey of the loch was conducted in 2018, and they didn't find any DNA of really large fishes such as sharks, catfish, sturgeons, anything that could be explaining that. Now, they also didn't find any otter or seal DNA, but Loch Ness has a population of resident otters that live there, so I don't think that's probably the most accurate thing to be like, well, there's no big fish in there.
They're like, we don't know what's in there.
No, apparently no one knows what lives in Loch Ness.
That's very mysterious, though, isn't it?
It is a little bit odd. What they did find was huge amounts of eel DNA.
Eel?
Eel.
Oh, I think it's eagle.
No. No, there's no underwater eagles.
Eel. Huh.
Eels.
Now, okay, I have a question. How, and you probably maybe don't know this, but, like, how accurate are these DNA readings? Like, if you go to another lake or whatever, is it, like, always super accurate, and it's just, like, weird that Loch Ness has otters, but it doesn't come
not
up?
being a DNA expert, I really don't know. I can't imagine that they're all 100% accurate.
Yeah.
I don't know if the DNA could degrade, but the
That does
fact
seem
that they
weird, though.
didn't come up with any otters.
Well, because DNA is... I mean, people have pretty much been able to figure that out. It's been around for a while. You think
the
that
technology
something
is
would
pretty
come
established.
up.
Yeah.
That's odd.
Yeah, because I just think that was an interesting thing because, you know, everyone says it's an otter or a seal that people see.
Well, apparently there's no otters or seals there.
According to the DNA research, but you can look up Loch Ness, like, resident animals, and there's, like, a population of otters that live there.
You're like, guys, I'm looking at them. They're right here.
So apparently they don't leave any DNA anywhere. I don't know how that's possible.
Really weird, yeah.
I mean, it was 2018, though. That's very recent. You know, they have excellent technology, so
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't explain that, and I don't really know what I'm talking about. But
I really want to look more into that.
yeah, that'd be another interesting rabbit trail.
Very, very deep rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, but I mean, since there was no DNA of something that we know lives there, there could also have been no DNA of large fish that live there. But as one scientist put it, the possibility of eels of unusual size has not been ruled out. So I'm like, great, there's giant eels.
That is actually more terrifying to me than
Honestly,
anything else.
yeah.
Those things scare me.
I mean, if you think about the old lore and legend of sea monsters, eels do kind of look similar, but apparently these ones are giant. I don't know. If there are giant eels living in Scotland, we're all in trouble.
Yeah.
It's just scary to think about. So it could be an extremely large amount of eel DNA from extremely large eels or from an extremely large population of eels.
That's so interesting.
I don't know. I just really hope there's no giant eels.
There's a lot going on down there, isn't there?
It's the second largest lake in Great Britain, so it's big.
Yeah.
And so basically, no one knows what's in there. No one knows what it could be.
And we thought we did know, but apparently there's no DNA. So.
Yeah, so it's a great mystery of life.
Mysterious.
It's just, there's been such crazy explanations from everything from the otters and seals, which is not necessarily crazy, but when they're applied, it's like, okay, I think people would know an otter when they see one, but
yeah,
I don't know. And there's even been stuff about escaped circus elephants poking their trunks up out of the water, and that one, I'm sorry, I started laughing when I read that one.
That seems...
Because that seems a little
really stupid. Sorry, I'm gonna say it. That's too much.
I mean, I don't know if there were any escaped circus elephants documented in Scotland in this era, but
it's like super specific.
It's very. I mean, I guess it can. That's one of the explanations for the surgeon's photograph. Is it's an elephant trunk.
But then elephants can't. Well, I guess if he was.
I mean, they do.
Elephants can't swim in, like, really deep water like that.
I don't know how deep or far out to shore it was. The photograph was taken. It could have been... the water could have been 10 feet deep. I don't know. I mean...
I'm not...
I just gotta say that seems a little bit... I'd much more quickly accept that it's, you know, an otter.
Honestly, yeah.
Than an elephant. And... other explanations are that it's some sort of... you know, shark. Some people think it's a Greenland shark, but no Greenland shark DNA was found in this.
Well, no otter DNA was
found. But no
either,
otter DNA was found either, so I don't know how accurate that is.
I don't think we can really depend on the DNA.
Yeah, and a lot of sightings were probably just diving birds or, you know, birds leaving wakes and stuff. And it is definitely true that people see what they want to see, you know, and that if that's coloring your perception, you see something in the lake, that's probably the first place your mind is going to go when it shouldn't be the first place your mind goes. If you look out and see something moving, you're going to be like, oh,
it's the Loch Ness monster.
It's Nessie.
Yeah.
Another theory that has been proposed that it's kind of interesting is that the sightings may be decomposing Scots pine logs, because these logs can sink, and then as they decompose, gases build up, but they can't get out because of the high amount of resin in pine trees. Mm-hmm. And so eventually they like burst and come to the surface, and as they're releasing this gas, it can actually propel them through the water so that they appear to be like moving.
That's interesting. So
that is kind of interesting. Yeah. And then there's the standing waves theory. And that's pretty much the extent of all the scientific explanations about the Loch Ness Monster now. One more thing I will say is the plesiosaur theory, which I don't know. I mean, we know plesiosaurs did exist at some point. Maybe it could somehow have gotten into the loch. There is, I think, through the river, the river Inverness. And I just don't know, because they didn't find any plesiosaur DNA in this survey either, but...
Again, they didn't find any otter DNA,
It doesn't seem to be like that's the best evidence that there is, because there's a lot they didn't find.
What do you think? Like, where do you land? Is Nessie real?
I gotta admit, I was actually more of a believer before I started researching this.
Oh, no.
My faith has been shaken a little bit. After seeing just some of the videos and so many eyewitness accounts, it's just... I would love for Nessie to be real, but I don't want that to color my...
Yeah.
Whether or not I think the Loch Ness Monster is real. I mean, there's so much Scottish Celtic folklore about sea monsters. I mean, all over the world there's folklore about sea monsters. It's just like a fear people have, but at the same time, are they there for a reason? Did people not maybe make up...
Well, but also, the Loch Ness Monster doesn't really fit the traditional, like, sea monster vibe or whatever that, like, people, like, when they were out on boats and got attacked, it was like a giant squid or a giant octopus of some kind that, like, always took people's lives and like broke down the ship or whatever.
It's definitely not a kraken.
That's
there is the whole sea serpent thing too, and some people have said they saw like humps in the water, like the sea serpent. But at the same time, people already knew about that. You read that in fairy tales, could that...
And again, giant eels, like...
Yeah.
The ocean and waters are super crazy, so it's like, I'm not going to say that there's no such thing as a giant eel that we haven't, like, discovered yet.
It's a very deep lake, and...
I would probably say that, like, the Loch Ness Monster, like, we see in those, like, the plesiosaur... Is that it?
Yeah, please.
Like, I don't know about that, but I feel like that there probably is some weird stuff going on in that loch.
I feel like there's got to be something that we just haven't discovered yet.
Yeah. It may not be as, like, exciting as the Loch Ness Monster, but it might just be
There's got to be something behind these reports, and I don't believe everyone's seeing otters and birds. You
know what we have to do?
What?
Go to Scotland.
I know, I really want to go there now and just, like, sit there for a few days. But I'll probably not see anything since I'm looking,
Right.
But according to some experts, the anatomy of a plesiosaur's bones wouldn't make it possible for them to lift their head up out of the water, like...
Oh, interesting.
But the thing is, all the accounts I found, none of them really said they lifted their head up out of the water, and I'm sure there's reports I haven't seen, but if the surgeon's photograph was a hoax, how do we know that the Loch Ness Monster, or whatever it is people are seeing, actually lifts its head up out of the water?
Well, I would be going off of, like, the eyewitness accounts, kind of.
Yeah.
Because, like, they seem to kind of describe something that would look like the surgeon's photo.
It definitely is, yeah, but I don't know. It's just, to me, it could be some sort of... We don't know all there is to know about the
also,
realm of...
Maybe there's, like, several monsters in there.
Yeah, I mean... It would have to probably be many of them living down there so they could breed and survive for thousands of years when, other dinosaurs and dinosaur relatives have gone extinct.
It's just been one living down there for
there
the
is
last
also... Yeah. There, in some of the photos that were taken, there did it in the 1970-something study. I forget what. There were several studies. And... one or two photos did seem like there were multiple things that they caught on camera. So, I mean, just logically it would make sense that there would have to be more than one, not just one that's surviving since...
the dawn of time.
The dawn of time. Immortal thing. But there is the point that if it was a plesiosaur, it would have to come to the surface several times a day to breathe.
True.
And it just seems like it would have been discovered by now, but then...
I feel like, because, like, people have been watching, like, if it has to come up to breathe...
people are looking
like,
for it.
Yeah.
But then there are animals that can come to the surface to breathe with exposing very, very little of their body. I mean, think of dolphins and crocodiles can sit completely submerged with just tiny little little bit sticking out so they can breathe. And there are some accounts that describe, like, horned like horn-like protruber.
What? Are you broken?
It's really hard to say
Protruding?
Protruding horn-like appendages on the head of the creature that they saw, and some people have posited that it could possibly be some sort of breathing mechanism, like tubes that they stick up out of the water and breathe from. And I mean, I'm not ruling anything out.
I think we just have to go to Scotland.
Yeah, let's just go to Scotland and figure this out
That's
for
basically
ourselves.
what I'm taking from
I'm
this.
sure we can do better than the teams of scientists that have gone out there with sonar.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll find it.
Screw
we'll find
you
it.
and your sonar. I'm gonna take
got some binoculars.
I'm gonna take my phone out and take a picture.
So,
Oh boy.
that is
That's the Loch Ness Monster.
pretty much it. I mean, that's what I found in my research. That is the best eyewitness accounts and stories and sonar findings and all that weird crap.
This is gonna be a super long first episode.
This is, but I think you can cut out a lot of what I said.
No, I'm gonna keep it on.
It's already at 45 minutes.
I'm gonna be honestly pretty quick.
I took up all the time.
I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Sorry. I don't think well, no, maybe I don't know. I did a lot, actually. I say that, but I did a fair amount. I showed William last night, and he was like, whoa. I was, like, scrolling through. I was like, this is all the research I did. But anyway, so I'm going to be doing the Bermuda Triangle.
Yes.
And I still, even afterward, I was kind of like, I don't know either way. Like, there are some things that I'm like, absolutely, like, Bigfoot, 1000% real. I have never doubted it. I don't think I ever will. Like, I totally believe that they are out there.
It's another podcast episode.
Yes, that's the next one. But, like, Loch Ness and Bermuda Triangle, I'm like, I don't really know. And I feel like kind of the same way after doing this. I was like, there's a lot of weird stuff going on.
I mean,
but I don't know.
If I could just interject one thing, I do think there's something going on in the Bermuda Triangle. It's just that you can't figure out an explanation that 100% works.
Although there was actually a couple but I'll get to that.
Okay.
So, it's also called the Devil's Triangle, which is fitting because gross. It is between Puerto Rico, Bermuda, and Florida. Bermuda Triangle. I guess, like, Puerto Rico, Florida Triangle doesn't sound as cool. It became known as, like, potentially dangerous in, like, the mid-20th century. But it was in 1950, Edward Van Winkle Jones wrote an article for the Miami Herald, and then 2 years later, a Fate magazine published an article by George Sand, which covered the disappearance of several boats and planes, including Flight 19, which is, like, the big one. Yeah. A lot of books were written in the next 10 years or so about the Bermuda Triangle, all having, like, similar... Wait. Oh, my notes don't make any sense. I think I cut something out and then forgot to cut that out. But yeah, basically, like, around 1950, I think, kind of like the Loch Ness Monster, like, journalism and, like, news traveled a lot faster. Mm-hmm. And also, planes and boats were going out there, whereas, like, beforehand, no one was heading out there. There does apparently seem to be some issues actually defining where the triangle boundaries are. It is determined, I think, now to be those 3 points: Miami, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. But in the past, some writers have stretched it all the way up to the Irish coast.
Wow. I feel like there's just...
I was like, that's basically, like, just the whole ocean.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me that some ships would go down there.
So I was like, I don't know.
But then there's weird stuff goes on in Ireland now.
Exactly. So I was like, I don't know, but I think now it's pretty much just those.
Yeah.
That's known as the Bermuda Triangle.
I mean, sailing and flying is just less dangerous than it used to be, so.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Larry Cush, author of the Bermuda Triangle Solved, so we already know where his views are, said many claims that the writers had made in the past were exaggerated or just not able to be verified, so, like, sensationalism. He pointed out that in a lot of cases, there was a lot of important information left out and just a lot of inaccurate stuff. So just basically lying.
The news.
Stretching it, yeah. His main points were 1, the number of boats and aircrafts that were reported missing in that area wasn't significantly more than like any other area of the ocean. So it's just kind of like people were like, let's just focus and report all of the stuff that's happening right here. And it's like, well, guys, right over here, there's just as much. It's just you're not reporting it. And there was so much extreme weather in that area. It wasn't mysterious to have that
I mean,
many.
it's a tropical area.
Exactly. So there's a lot going on there. Some writers never mentioned that these storms may have been happening during the disappearances.
Okay, well, that's squiffy.
So, like, that's big. 2, in some instances, boats may have been reported missing, but then when they showed up later, they weren't reported to have been found.
That's
like,
also
to have
very
come
important.
Home. So it's like, oh my gosh, that's a big deal. So there's obviously that's gonna mess up data.
It's like, I came home, like, the week after the post
Exactly.
that article.
Like, guys, I'm here. You're like, shh, it's fine. So anyway, he concluded that the Bermuda Triangle was a manufactured mystery, quote unquote, by writers who either accidentally or purposefully used false information and just kind of sensationalized it. But that is one man's opinion. I'm sure other people share his opinion, and I think he was right about a lot of that stuff, but there is also a lot of really weird stuff that has happened that people are like,
I agree with parts of what he said.
What's going on? So Flight 19. December 5th, 1945, routine training, and I think actually these guys were like the 18th squadron, or not squadron, but like the 18th group to go out that day, so like,
oh wow,
there was nothing weird about this, like very, very normal. 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers took off from a naval air station in Fort Lauderdale, and yeah, they were the 19th crew to fly that day.
Oh, Flight 19.
Oh my gosh.
I never got that before.
I am so stupid.
No, you're not. I've read about this too, and I never made that connection.
Oh my word, I was just like, they're just called Flight 19 for reasons.
It's a fun name.
Oh my gosh. Okay, wow.
That explains it though.
I feel really stupid now.
No, I never realized
Flight 19. Anyway, it was a 3-hour exercise. They were supposed to go in a triangular flight pattern going east from the Florida coast, then turn north, go over Grand Bahama Island before turning one last time and flying southwest back to base. So, again, they'd done it before. 4 of the planes had 3 men and 1 of them had 2, and all of these guys had like 300 hours of flying time. So, like, again, these were not people that like, oh, I just got my pilot's license, or like, I'm being trained to be a pilot. Like, these guys knew
what they were doing.
They knew what they were doing. Like, 300 hours, I don't even know. That's a lot of hours.
I'm in the air.
The flight's leader was Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor. He was a very experienced pilot and a veteran of several combat missions in World War II. Again, very, very experienced. He knew what he was doing. Everything went fine at first. They dropped their practice bombs at 2:30 p.m. But right after that, they turned north for like the second part. And Taylor became convinced that his compass wasn't working and the planes were going in the wrong direction. To add insult to injury, a front blew in, and then rain, wind, and a bunch of cloud cover, and they all became disoriented. Which I think probably wouldn't have been that bad, like, under normal circumstances, but...
Yeah, I'm sure they'd flown in storms before.
You're in the Bermuda Triangle, so that's not going to do you any good. At this point, one of the pilots radioed in and said, quote, "I don't know where we are. We must have got lost after that last turn." Lieutenant Robert F. Cox was flying near the Florida coast at this time and heard that on the radio. So he immediately informed the air station about what was happening and then tried to connect with the Avengers to see if they needed help, which I was like, obviously they do, Lieutenant. Yeah. Please send help, but anyway. Lieutenant Taylor said, "Both my compasses are out and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale. I'm over land, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down." This did not make any sense because they would have had to have drifted hundreds of miles in 1 hour to be over the Keys at that point. Like,
That doesn't make sense speed-wise.
It doesn't make sense. Like, I don't think they actually could have physically gotten there
in time.
People think that because Taylor recently transferred, he might have confused some of the islands in the Bahamas as the Florida Keys. But again, we don't know. Because this guy is also really experienced.
I'm sure he kind of made a study of the area before he decided to fly over it.
But that's what people might have thought happened, like one explanation. And apparently they had rules, you know, they're the military, they got rules about what to do in a situation like this, and they were supposed to go west if they found themselves lost in the Atlantic. Like, that was just go west.
Makes sense, you'll hit Texas, right?
Yeah, you're gonna hit something. Land, right? But Taylor was convinced they were over the Gulf of Mexico. So he had the Avengers fly northeast, which only took them further out to sea.
Yes, the opposite.
Yeah. Some of the pilots seem to have recognized this to be a mistake, but most of them followed them. I think actually at one point one of them did break off, but I don't actually know what happened to them. Eventually, though, Taylor was convinced to turn around and head west, but after 6 p.m., he canceled that order and turned around once again. So keep in mind, they've been flying around lost for 3.5 hours now.
Like,
2:30 was when they made, like, they dropped the bombs, everything was fine. Then they turned, and it's been, like, horrible ever since. So it's 6 p.m. They still have not been able to find their way home.
Yeah.
At this point, the radio signals were getting fainter, but they could hear Taylor prepping the men for a crash landing in the ocean, which is, like, absolutely eerie to me. And then a few minutes after that, all connection was lost and they could only get static. And that's, like, the last they heard of them.
Yeah. That is just the craziest story to me because, not to, like, fill in, you did a very good job researching. I didn't know a lot of that, but I have read up on this Flight 19 a little bit, and if I'm remembering correctly, he actually did not want to go out on this mission. Like, Taylor...
Yeah, I was gonna get to that.
Okay, sorry. Never mind, you can cut me out.
My surprise. No, but you're right, he did. Yeah, he did. And I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
I did not write this out well, that doesn't make any sense, but the men immediately sent out planes to hunt for them. At 7:30, a pair of Mariner flying boats took off to search, but just 20 minutes later, one of them vanished off the radar. Which, again, is kind of creepy, but this might have been because it exploded. Apparently, these flying boats exploded a lot.
Oh.
Which seems like a really...
Pinto of the ocean.
Which, again, to me, seems like a really bad design flaw. Like,
yeah.
Why?
Let's send you out on a rescue mission and hope you don't explode.
Kind of. And they think that is what happened because there was another boat going by, and they're like, oh yeah, we saw a fiery explosion happen, like, right then.
That could explain that.
But again, like, can you guys get a better design?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. The next day, the Navy dispatched 300 more boats and aircrafts, and these ones did not explode. They spent 5 days searching 300,000 square miles of ocean and found nothing. Absolutely nothing. No debris, no bodies, no planes, nothing.
Wow.
And that's the part that really doesn't make sense to me, because even if Taylor got confused, it doesn't explain why every member became so disoriented as well.
Yeah. Like, you'd think one of the guys would... I mean, I know you're supposed to follow orders, but if it's your life on the line, I feel like I'd rather be...
And they were in connection.
Discharged than to die.
Like, at that point, like 3 hours into it, none of the guys...
Somebody had to be like, okay, this isn't working, I'm going this way.
Yeah. And then also that they found nothing.
Could it have, like, sunk, or is there a strong current in that area and it could have drifted?
Well, I will get to that.
Okay,
but still, I think, like, one day later, like,
it wouldn't have gone
they
that
would have
far.
found something.
Yeah.
But, and then, later, people said that day, Lieutenant Taylor arrived for training, saying, I just don't want to take this out. And he came a few minutes late and asked to be excused from leading the mission. And some people say this was proof he wasn't fit for duty. But no one said anything about him being, like, out of it. He just didn't want to take them out. So, I don't know what that means.
He might have had a bad
He
feeling.
might have had a bad feeling. Yeah, exactly. Like, gosh, I don't know. And there's honestly so much more about Flight 19 that I could have gone into, but I had to shorten it up, so it's just been so fascinating. But moving on to another one, which is the Mary Celeste, which you got really excited about. You probably know more about this than I do.
I haven't read about it in years,
honestly.
But I remember being super interested in it, like slightly obsessed for a time.
So I literally have like just like one little itty bitty thing about it. But on November 7th, 1872, so this was a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
The Mary Celeste was set to sail from New York to Genoa, Italy. Now, I looked up the route of the Mary Celeste because after reading about this, I was like, how did they go from New York to Italy to the what? Like, how did that happen?
Good point, but I guess they would have to stop for supplies somewhere.
They did, and I looked it up, and maybe I'll like post the map that I looked at, and it did make a little bit more sense, and also they got like way off track, so
yeah,
it was a whole thing. But once I could like actually visualize it, it helped a little bit. But anyway, there were 8 crew members and Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and they were transporting raw alcohol, which I don't really know what exactly that is.
But
it seems pretty intense.
Yeah.
And so they left on November 7th, and by December 4th, a British ship called the De Gratia found Mary Celeste in the Atlantic I should have looked up how to pronounce these things, off the Azores Islands. The ship was unmanned with no crew aboard, and the lifeboat was missing. So weird.
Yeah.
Right, that's weird. It was also found that 9 of the barrels in the cargo were empty, and there was a sword in the deck.
Okay.
Yeah, so like, what was that? No trace of the people aboard the vessel or the missing lifeboat has ever been found. It wasn't a pirate attack, like experts have.
I feel like there would have been some evidence of a struggle.
Exactly, and then people said that everything on the ship, including the barrels of freaking raw alcohol.
Yeah, there would have been valuables stolen.
All of the crew's valuable belongings were still there.
Yeah.
So it's like, that was not a pirate.
Some really dumb pirates, if it was.
If it was, they were very bad pirates. Like,
needed to go back to pirate
not
school.
Not pirating well. Other theories include a criminal conspiracy, alien abduction, and even an attack by a giant squid or sea monster. Which honestly sounds kind of crazy, but I don't know what's out in the middle of the ocean. Like, this was a relative, I don't know, it could have been a giant squid or something like
Who
that.
knows?
Yeah.
We just discovered something even bigger than a giant squid, so pretty recently.
So I'm not going to totally rule that out. A lot of experts suggested it was an undersea earthquake. But
the ship was still there.
But the ship was still there, so I was kind of like, why would you be like, oh my gosh, there's an undersea earthquake, let's get on this really small boat and go away. Like,
yeah, that's not really gonna help.
To me, that doesn't make much sense. But all of these explanations, they don't solve the mystery of why an experienced captain and crew abandoned a sound ship and were never found again. Because that's the thing, the ship, when it was found, there was nothing wrong with it.
And they didn't take anything
and
either.
Was taken.
You'd think, his wife would grab her necklaces or something, like, on the way out.
Like, and so it wasn't, it's very weird. And then this part was weird to me. The last entry in the ship's log said they were within sight of the Azores Islands of Santa Maria, which is 500 miles from where they were found just 9 days later. But then in that same article that I was reading it says they were found in the Atlantic off the Azores Islands. So like, I guess what they're saying is like they didn't move in like 9 days.
Oh, that is a little weird. Yeah, that's not
efficient. Because like it didn't. That whole thing didn't make sense, like the ship's log versus where they were found. Like, I read several articles about it, and I was like, I don't understand it. I probably needed to do more of a deep dive, but I wanted to keep it kind of short. And I will put, like, the map and the course that the ship took, because it's very confusing to, like, even when I was looking it up, I was like, this doesn't make sense. But I think the biggest weirdness of it was that they just abandoned this ship with no, like, the ship was in perfect condition. So it's like,
yeah, absolutely no reason.
why would they get off? And if there was like a struggle, like pirates attacked them or something, that doesn't make any sense because all of their stuff was there.
It comes down to anything that would take them forcibly would have left signs of a struggle, and if they left willingly, they wouldn't have left everything that they left.
And also, why did they leave?
No
willingly?
explanation.
Like, there was no.
And you'd think if they had to leave for some really, really weird reason, they'd, like, leave a note. I don't know. Like,
It's just really weird.
It's so freaky.
It is really weird. That one.
I love ghost ships.
It's creepy. But yeah.
It's so weird.
So, a few explanations for the Bermuda Triangle. One of them, which I personally don't think that this is it, is that it has leftover technology from Atlantis.
I don't think that's that weird. I'll buy that.
Some say that there's a parallel universe that exists in the Bermuda Triangle and people get sucked into a time-space warp.
Ooh, like a wormhole?
Yeah, which I will say does explain the lack of the bodies and wreckage found in a lot of cases. Because it wasn't just with Flight 19, like there was a bunch of other ones that I looked up that everyone was like, yeah, they went out and then we couldn't get a hold of them, and then we sent out, people, like, search parties, and there was just nothing there.
It's kind of funny, though, how it sometimes seems to it sometimes seems to, like, suck in, if it is a wormhole, entire vessels, but then other times it just, like with the Mary Celeste, it just took the people off and left the boat.
I guess the wormhole does what it wants to do.
It does what it wants. It cannot be.
The wormhole wants what it wants. Also, another thing is the Gulf Stream flows right through that area and would definitely be able to suck up and carry away anything that landed in its path. And there are a lot of, like we talked about earlier, like there's a lot of weird, like, tropical cyclones and just really intense weather that happens out there. So, like, that does kind of make sense. Like, if something does happen and then, like, the Gulf Stream comes
carries
and, like,
it away.
Just carries it away. I still think that would have to take some time. Like,
it'd be interesting you'd have to do probably some mathematical calculations of, like, how fast it flows and, how.
But also, something else was interesting is these things called methane hydrates. This was actually kind of fascinating to me. So, experiments carried out in Australia apparently have proven that the bubbles from these things can sink a scale model ship. And so it's been hypothesized that methane eruption, or like a mud volcano, could produce areas of frothy water that wouldn't be able to provide buoyancy to a ship, and it would cause it to just sink.
Oh, but what about the airplanes?
That doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
That's just like one,
it could explain the ships, but not the airplanes.
It could explain the ships, it doesn't explain it all. It doesn't explain why people on the Mary Celeste were just like, hey, we out of here.
Yeah.
And then what most people say is it's just human error. Like, it's a coincidence, not reported correctly. Like, we don't have all of the facts or...
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like not exactly a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's like it's going to get more press if it happens in the Triangle, and something that happens in the Triangle is going to further the reputation of the Bermuda Triangle.
Well, and also, stuff happens all over the world in various areas of the ocean, but, like, when it's near the Bermuda Triangle, it's just that much more...
It's gonna get more press, which is gonna further people's, thoughts about it. One thing... Oh, I lost my train of thought. One thing I think I read about the Bermuda Triangle a while back is that it is also a very, very heavily trafficked area for ships and aircraft, just because of, tourism and shipping and all that. It's, like, in a huge shipping lane, so just statistically, it would make sense that there would be more wreckage and lost ships and aircrafts in that area too.
All of the stuff that happens is weird.
There's always some weird component about it.
It's not just like, statistically speaking, 1 out of every 100 boats is gonna sink or whatever, which I don't even think is true. It's always something so
there's
weird.
Always a component about it that just makes you go, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Like the Mary Celeste for me, for some reason, is I just want to be like, why?
Well, to me, what's intriguing is that they took the lifeboat. So, I mean, it would make the most sense. It's kind of like the settlement at Roanoke Island, Virginia, that It's just like they just disappeared and left everything.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that they would have left, but the thing you want to know is why would you leave?
Why would
in the
you
middle
leave?
of the ocean, your sound vessel, and
it
go into a lifeboat?
Because it's like, if it was a horrible storm, you wouldn't get in a lifeboat. If it was a sea monster, you wouldn't go and get in a tiny little lifeboat. If it was pirates, it obviously wasn't pirates. Like, that's not even
If it was a sea monster, there would have been probably
if
destroyed the
it was a sea
boat
monster,
too.
It would have been a violent attack. If it was, why? Like, that to me is like, and it's, I don't really think...
Honestly, to me, it just makes the most sense. There is some sort of, like, extra-dimensional rift.
Exactly.
If you're gonna go with any explanation that isn't human error, that seems to explain most of it.
It's pretty well.
Better than anything else. I mean, unless you're going for, like, alien abductions and supernatural stuff.
I don't know. I think that's probably a good stopping point for today.
That is probably. So, that was very interesting.
We hope that we need to think of a sign-off.
Yeah, we need to think. We hope you've enjoyed our little...
We hope you've enjoyed our crap. Tune in next week for...
More weird crap.
More weird crap.